Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ron Rambo Kim, and you are listening to the Center Ring.
Okay, so let's start.
Hello. Hello and welcome. Welcome back to another edition of the Center Ring, aka TCR, aka your favorite esports podcast. Episode 205 or 4. What episode is this, Anuj?
This is 204.
204.
204.
Ignore the number in the Twitch title then. This is 204. Episode 204 coming to you live and or pre-recorded from an undisclosed location. The date. What month is it? January. Man, off to a great start. January 15th, the year 2020. I know that one. And the time, 8:13 p.m. That's why it's throwing me off. We're nearly 15 minutes early from our scheduled start time.
People usually get the year wrong, not generally the month, but we'll let it slide.
I don't know, I was looking right at it on my computer. Did you see, my face on
the
screen?
Eyes go down to the corner.
What's the number 1 month? What is this? January. You know why? Because it was 90 degrees here in Dallas, so it threw me off.
Snowed Saturday and it was bright and sunny on Sunday.
I'm recovering from the flu. That's right. We discovered that I had the flu. That's what I was sick with. So I'm still a little stuffy from it, but I survived. I was strong. We lived on. Which just might make this the best episode ever. Because we got another interview for you guys as Rambo, as you heard the liner, the CS legend, Anuj's secret boyfriend, or wannabe boyfriend.
Not even denying it.
Joined the show. We have a pre-recorded interview with him, so we'll play that for you later. Envy drama. CSGO envy drama. Who would have thought that would have happened? So we'll discuss that. And hey, Ninja's got a Fortnite skin, Anuj.
Incredible. It is really badass, actually. I think it's I couldn't imagine being in that situation where there's a skin of me in a video game, right? It's called Terrorist in Counter-Strike.
I was gonna say, you have some skins in Counter-Strike.
Yeah, I got a couple in Counter-Strike, but to have your own skin, that's mind-blowing. That's really cool.
And be sure to follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring. That's the most important takeaway from all of this. Follow us at The Center Ring. Our website, tcr.gg, will have all of the information that you need to join our Discord and all that fun stuff. Let's get into the show, though, because this just happened a couple hours ago, I think, or at least earlier today.
Yeah.
Where it all broke out. I was not expecting Envy CSGO roster drama, especially right after having Jay on the show, and he is just so happy that this happened after he was on the show, because we definitely would have pushed buttons just to get some reaction out of him.
We would have got a postponement email had this happened right before he came on. Hey guys, I'm a little busy. Some social media stuff just came up. Won't be able to hop on with you today.
Super important social media meetings. Can't miss that. So Anuj, just explain then in short what's going on with Envy.
Yeah, so it kind of all stems from Fugly. He had a post today. Basically, Fugly's been with Envy since earlier this year. I think around March of this year. He joined with Som. They were kind of forming a new roster at that point. Android was on the team. Obviously, Fugly was there. And then, who was the last guy? Sonic, who was on ATK, now on Cloud9. So that was the 5-man squad that they had at the time. And it's from what we're reading, I mean, a lot of this is just kind of going off of individual Twitter feeds right now, right? We're kind of gathering information as we go here. But from Fugly's standpoint, he made it seem like he got bitten by a snake here. I mean, it's a bad look because he goes basically directly at Nifty in his twit longer, and we'll kind of dive into that here in a moment. But it's kind of showing from his perspective how Envy's CSGO side is managed currently. And it kind of also brought in what we're seeing, a lot of retweets from current players on their team, former players on their team. You know, we don't want to think that a retweet is always a sense of endorsement, but I get the feeling in this case
Yeah.
it is, right? Like, although you haven't had a JDM or somebody come out and publicly say it.
We might be looking too far into it, but like JDM just retweeting the fact that Fugly was benched. Again, I just get the vibe. The fact that all the other former players, Drone, right, does the little baby Yoda drinking coffee meme, and it's just all these guys that have formerly played under that roster with Nifty have done some like undertone, read between the lines type of tweet about this. So it leads me to believe, and Nifty even commented on Fugly's post. So I guess now it's turned into a who do you believe, or he said, she said drama.
And Nifty didn't come out and deny anything. And Nifty came out and just kind of apologized for the way the situation, like, hey, I'm sorry the way this kind of turned out, but wish you all the best. You know, like, we didn't mean to hurt feelings here, but like, wish you all the best. So it's not to say that he's coming out and saying I had nothing to do with this. All of this is a fabricated lie.
Nifty's comment was pretty much what a boyfriend says to a girlfriend after he dumps her, minus the like, hey, go make me jealous. Go make yourself beautiful.
He knows that that's probably not possible right now. And so to kind of go from the start here. So this is going to go off. We'll start off with the twit longer that we got from Fugly today.
Yeah.
And it starts off with the Sonic situation. This is back in August while Sonic was on the team. They were not doing well in matches at that time. It's from what he's saying here. Practice was also, pretty obvious that this team really wasn't working out. Part of the issue was Sonic is an opper. Nifty is also an opper. They wanted Sonic to opt during this time, and Nifty was going to be the IGL. Well, there was a kind of a group meeting with everyone except for Nifty. They created a WhatsApp chat where they were discussing potentially making a move and Nifty being the individual replaced. So they wanted Sonic to be the opper. It wasn't working out from an IGL standpoint, they felt, which is true. Like, it wasn't. Envy hasn't performed rather well, or wasn't performing well at that time. And at the same time, they didn't have the highest expectations with that roster, realistic expectations, I guess you could say. But they created a WhatsApp chat basically talking behind his back and saying, hey, we want to replace Nifty. Well, the next morning, from the looks of it, Nifty has now seen this chat, somehow been involved. Either somebody let him know what was going on, showed him the chat, whatever. Either way, he knew what was happening. And the next morning, Sonic was cut from the team without notifying any of the players. At that point, Fugly said he was kind of calling some players on the team, trying to figure out if anybody knew. Doesn't sound like anybody knew that was going to happen, and it ended up being like a Nifty decision. He was the only one that was aware that decision was happening, I guess you could say. Then fast forward, now they're asking Fugly to relocate to Dallas, which for him is a big challenge because he had told them prior to accepting the offer, which he had 3 offers at the time. Okay, so he had Envy, and he didn't mention what the other 2 were, but he said, one of the stipulations is I would ideally like to stay in Arizona. I already have an apartment that I'm leasing here. I'm paying utilities. I'm like signed up for all this stuff.
He said
for the next
mortgage
year
too.
Yeah,
I think you own a home.
Yeah, like you hard to pick up and just move, right? So he said he didn't want to move. They told him that's fine. Well, come beginning of September, they started to basically hint to him, hey, we need you here. Like, and I think you and I already knew this at the time. Like, Envy wants their teams to be based out of Dallas. And I believe Mike even has said that, I don't know if it was in a private conversation with us or publicly, but
I don't want to
say
what Fugly was told or whatever, right? But from every conversation that we've had with any type of ownership at Envy has always been, no, the end goal is that our players are going to live in Dallas because we are not building out this facility. Now, they don't need a team house, right? They can live wherever they want.
Yeah.
But
they're building a world-class gaming facility. They want their players there.
They don't want
shocker,
four
right?
guys here and one guy playing online in Arizona. Like, we need everyone here in meetings, same time zone. We're not going to, FaceTime.
Now, again, if Fugly was told otherwise, that is a little unfortunate, right? Different. Like, it's a different situation. He's saying that he was. So for now, we'll just kind of play it as this is the situation, right? So, he has decided now or agreed to at this point come towards the end of the year that, hey, if I'm going to end up staying on this team, like I'm going to have to move. I'm starting to read between the lines here. They want me to move, so I'm going to go ahead and do this. So he starts asking them about a stipend and being able, get some money up front, basically. That was a guaranteed money to him where he could make this transition and still cover the mortgage and stuff back home, as well as pay for all the future stuff that he would have to in Dallas. So they told him, yeah, we're working on it soon. We'll get you information soon. December starts to slowly trickle by. Not a lot of information is coming out. Around this time, Envy released their coach and their CSGO manager. So there was a little bit of turmoil going on at that point. And then somewhere around here, and I'm trying to think exactly when, Android got notified that he was like being let go off of the team. And I probably got to go back and read this, but they had no idea that Android was getting cut. So again, now you have Sonic cut. Nobody knew on the team except for Nifty. Now you have Android being cut. Nobody seemed to know on the team, other than Nifty. And Fugly is still trying to retain this spot here, right? Like he wants to stay on the team. Obviously, you don't want to be looking for a new job if you don't have to. So he starts calling Envy pretty furiously, like, "Here, come on, guys, like let's get this going. I'm telling you, I'm gonna move. Where's the money? What are we doing?" Basically, the month goes by, and then we get to Tim. I'm looking this up. Sorry, I want to find this.
Hey, while you're looking at that, I do have breaking news to fill in the time.
Mm-hmm.
It is episode 205.
Oh, even better.
Not 204.
So on the 13th, he gets a message from an anonymous number, says, "When are you looking to move?" He replies back, saying like didn't know who is this, basically. He messages Nifty asking him who it is. Nifty did not reply back for a number of days. Sounds like 5 days.
That's the cliffhanger of the article. You never find out who the mystery number is.
Yeah, they never
he never follows up.
Then on the 13th, he sees an article about Calix joining Envy. He asked Ryan if he knew about it. Again, nobody seems to know that these moves are taking place. So, I mean, for somebody that's on a team, if you don't know, like, all of this is happening, who your new teammates are, who's getting cut, like, it's probably a very uncomfortable situation. Like, I couldn't imagine. Right. It's not like the NFL where you have 50 plus players on a team. Like, this is, Counter-Strike is a pretty
tight-knit,
intimate setting, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's 5 people that are together constantly, and so for him to be so far out of the loop is quite shocking.
And not even being in Dallas too, right? Like, he can't just walk down to the offices or try to find someone. Like, he is pretty much helpless back in Arizona, as he knows at this point the writing's on the wall. He can put 2 and 2 together and realize what's going on.
This is kind of where it takes that final turn, right? So at this point now, Calix has been added to the team. Android's getting benched. He reaches out again one more time to Envy. Is like, guy, he said he did this with more of like a purpose, this call, I guess you could say. And this time they did respond and letting him know, hey, you've been moved to the bench. So all in all, he feels like he was baited. He doesn't feel like he was given proper information, that he was left, in his words, to sit on the back burner, and obviously has created a pretty shitty feeling in his eyes, right? Like, it's left a bad taste in his mouth, and he decided to vent all of this out. And so where this kind of all now comes back is, what does this do for Envy in their future if this is the perception that's out there, whether it's right or wrong or real or not real?
Right. Let's look at some facts that I know are, I can 99.99% like tell you that these are facts. They brought Nifty on the roster for this roster to be built around.
Correct.
Fact.
And that was after his like time in Renegades, right? He had a very high point in Renegades, looked good in several events. So I think everybody thought that was a good move, right? Like getting Nifty was a big get for them at the time.
The fact is that, and they still have that mindset. So he is going to have a lot more saying power on who goes in and out of this roster. Also fact, CSGO is third priority right now for Envy. That is also a fact. So I don't think, and maybe I'm wrong here, I don't want to paint anyone's picture here, but I don't think Mike Ruffel is that concerned or has been paying attention too much to the CSGO roster, because they haven't even played very much recently, right? To say who's performing well and whatnot. Like he's putting together the roster for the upcoming Overwatch League. He's putting together a brand new facility, moving on upstairs. He's putting together the CDL team and getting everything ready there, and we all know that's his favorite. Like without a doubt, CDL is Mike's favorite. So I could see how Nifty kind of took on that role of player GM. And
they got rid of the manager too, right? And the coach is not there.
Yeah.
So who is the voice of that team? It's going to be the captain of that team at this point, right? And that would be Nifty. And so this is
Nifty
not to
goes
say
to
that
Mike, says, Mike, I'm going to do this. Mike's like, all right, bud, I trust you. This is your roster. This is your team. And then that's probably where the line of communications ended. And so it was never like, hey, Nifty, how are you handling cutting this player, right? Like there was no like, hey, why don't you make sure you really keep communications open? That's probably where that miscommunication happened.
And for me, this is not like me thinking that they don't, give a crap about CS, right?
Right. Of course.
I just think they don't have a lot of money invested into CS right now. So there's not a lot to lose there, unlike CDL and Overwatch League. Right now they have tens of millions of dollars riding on who knows what happens with Overwatch League after this year, right? Like there's so much pressure there. I bet as an owner, my mind would be there 24/7 and what is the league doing? How are they going to make this better? There's just so much going on there. Call of Duty inaugural kickoff is coming up in just a few weeks. Like I just don't think Mike is sitting there thinking about the Counter-Strike team at the moment. And that's not an indictment on him saying like, oh, what a terrible owner or anything. That's not it at all. It's just priorities are what they are.
It's the reality of the situation.
So if Nifty does have some sort of overall control, I agree. I don't feel like it's like unjustified. They gave him the keys to the car. They want the team to grow around him. So naturally, he's going to have at least more input. It's not to say Nifty is the one writing the checks here. It's just, yes, his input is probably more value than the other players on the team. My concern for them is this is becoming quite public and almost viral in the CSGO community over the past few hours, right?
Yeah.
And my concern here is that if the impression is to other players that Nifty does have this kind of control, how many players are actually going to want to go and participate and play with him?
So again,
I think that's a really tough sell.
I'm going to look at the facts. Envy is not that desirable of a roster to pick up and move to for a tier 1 player, right? Which is probably who Nifty is looking at. Yeah. That's a fact, right? Envy's been kind of down on their luck ever since coming back into CSGO after dropping their French roster. They haven't really been able to find their footing. I don't know if you're a tier 2 player, you're probably nervous, right? You're taking note of this, but what other choices do you have, right?
You're going to take that gamble,
You're going to take the gamble, and sure, you might have this constant feeling in the back of your mind that Nifty is in some private chat with other guys trying to work against you or seeing, hey, is this working out? You had a bad scrim here and there, but that to me would be the issue, right? Not getting the players there. It's once they're there, the focus that they have on just playing. Just worry about playing well. Because now you got to think every time you have a bad match, every time you have a bad scrim, and you see Nifty pick up his phone, you're going to be like, who's this guy messaging now, right?
Yeah. But let's also be clear here. Fugly admitted to them starting the first WhatsApp chat
To get
without
rid of
Nifty on it, and trying to make a move. Now, in my mind, that's also a little dumb. Like, were they not aware that Nifty had some sort of extra pull, or it would be really hard to go to Mike and be like, hey, we want to kick Nifty off the team right now? Like, maybe only the outside saw it, that this was, maybe we're closer to Envy than I really, think. And that's why we knew that Nifty was the person that this was really focused around.
Right.
But for them to think that they could also create a chat to boot Nifty off sounds a little idiotic to me. Like, it sounds like that was a bad move. If you wanted to have a conversation with changing roles, that should have included Nifty. If it
Kinda
was
like
to
know
make a
your worth at
move,
some point.
I mean, I think so. Like, I don't think Navi is gonna have a conversation with the four of them and not include Simple in it, because Simple's had a bad tournament or two. Not to say Nifty and Simple are on the same level, but in terms of who they are to that team,
Yeah.
I think they kind of are, right? Like, Nifty is the guy on that team. So I think that was a bad move, and started this. If this is how it all began, they started it. I
Yeah.
mean, that's kind of the easiest way to put it. Now, his reaction to kicking Sonic off the next morning, bad move. That's not how you go about that. That comes across to me as a little immature,
See, and this
childish.
is where I kind of chuckle to myself, because like I said, we talked to Envy more often than other teams, and there was one time I was at their offices for an event, and I was talking to Nifty, and this was right around when that original roster with Drone
JDM.
and all them, and JDM was still on the roster. This was like when that core group first started, and we were all talking for a little bit, and Nifty was saying, yeah, he's seeing the teams. He loves being on Envy. He loves being here because Mike, like every other player, right? The resources and everything, and the fact that he has a therapist that he speaks with, a team therapist, talks about how his mood and his attitude and how he handles himself with people, and how it's just made the world of a difference. Well, now you see these rants about him, and it's like, well, looks like you haven't changed it at all. This looks like that stereotype of like the egocentric guy going to therapy thinking he's becoming a better person, when in reality, no, you're just more full of yourself just because you go to therapy, but you're really just that big of an ass still outside of it. Like,
and again, I really don't want to sit here and make it like a Nifty bashing session, right? Because this is a he said, she said. Although he said, I guess. But although we do believe there are aspects of Fugly's tweet longer that are probably fairly accurate, what we don't know is how the communication between Nifty and the org was, and how those decisions were made.
I will also say
this
this:
it's full of speculation right now.
Not knowing you're getting cut is also not that big a deal to me. I think most players who get cut don't know they're getting cut.
They might know that they're on the chopping block, or there's a chance something could happen, but like, you're never really, it's not like you're given a 2 weeks notice before you're cut. Like,
no.
that's not really how that works, right? For Sonic, it worked out better anyway. He moved over to ATK, and now he's part of Cloud9, and the greatest organization ever, right, Tim? So, yeah, I mean, again, this situation is going to be, I think, kind of an ongoing one for the time being. But I really, what I want to see from this is what this does to the reputation of Nifty. How does he kind of pull himself out of this? Again, right or wrong, how does he kind of pull himself out of this situation? And how does Envy rebound for CSGO? Because I still have my concerns there in terms of who they're able to get, what they're trying to build, where the focus is. For all the reasons we discussed earlier, we don't think it's a huge focus. We know they want to be good in Counter-Strike, but how bad do they really want it? The rosters that we've seen recently, I think, kind of do a little bit of the speaking for us here. So definitely not a good look. They're going to have to do some damage control here. I don't think Nifty's response on Fugly's post was also a good one. If he was
but that's all you're going to get.
Yeah, I don't
That
think he
is
should have
all you're going to
responded.
get from
I don't think
Nifty.
he should have responded at all to
Yeah.
his tweet longer response because it didn't seem very genuine, or like how a person talking to person it seemed very corporate in that type of
Right.
response. So yeah, I mean, again, just not an overall good look for an org that we don't have a lot of negativity coming from, right? There's not a lot of bad things coming out of Envy. It's really hard to bash anything that they've really done. Or whether you like even the Overwatch League investment or not, they're help driving that, right? Like they were a
Right.
big part of it. They were one of the early adopters and took a chance on it. So they've been in, CDL obviously, and the new facility. So a lot of positives. This is a little bit of a stain that I think they will overcome just fine. That does not mean they're going to have an amazing CS:GO roster in 6 months, though. That's also not what I'm saying. So I'm kind of curious to see how this evolves, and I think we'll probably come back to this story, maybe in a week or two, and just touch on it in E-News to let people know what some of the outcomes or updates are for the situation. But definitely an interesting one to follow. And I thought today was a good day to talk about it because it's so fresh, and it's literally happening as we're talking right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And you just think, too, with CDL starting up, Overwatch League starting up, like, is this really something that Mike, the owner of Envy, wants to even work? I mean, at the end of the day, it was a cut player who went on and did a twit longer.
Yeah.
Is there some things in it that make Nifty look bad? And he even said this was not management, right? He's like, when I say I talk to the Envy or I talk to the team, he was pretty much talking about Nifty, right? And the CS:GO guys, not management. So at the end of the day, it's a cut player talking about why or what happened when he was cut. You could pretty much probably have something similar to this from every player that's ever been cut from a team before. So we'll see what happens.
See if multiple people start coming out and actually talking. And like I said, we've seen some things that are a little cryptic right now. I'm curious if more people actually come out and open up about the situation. So,
all right. Well, as we said, we had the pleasure of speaking with Rambo, Ron Kim Rambo, the other night. We pre-recorded the interview. So here it is for your enjoyment. Welcome back to another TCR Interviews. Our guest this episode is a Counter-Strike legend. He played for Team 3D and Complexity, just to name a few. Most recently, you saw him coaching Team Complexity and NA juggernaut Cloud9. Please welcome to the show 2001-ish Comp USA Counter-Strike Tournament champion, Rambo.
Oh, hello. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
How are you, dude? Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, a little applause. I love it.
We have production value here, okay? This is top of the line podcast.
Top notch. So it's funny because Tim mentions Comp USA, and this is a big joke. So I got to go back 15 plus years now. So we're going back to like 2001, 2002. 16-year-old Anu just sitting in his room and gets introduced to Counter-Strike for the first time. So I immediately dive into this game, fall in love with it, start looking up pro players, obviously. And two people kept coming up in my searches, and that was Rambo and that was K-Sharp. And so I very, very closely followed y'all's career, highlight plays. I mean, really, again, it's a big joke on the show because people know on the show that I idolize you from an esports perspective. And there's a funny story that I've been waiting for years to be able to tell you this story. So back in 2001, 2002 timeframe, you had just joined onto Team 3D. You and a couple of your buddies come down to Comp USA here in Hurst, Texas. And it was a local little tournament. I have no idea why you decided to come there and embarrass anybody that you played against over there. But we had an opportunity to meet you at that event. You pulled up in your, I think it was like a white Prelude, if I'm not mistaken, back then that you might have had. And we were like, oh my God, look at this esports player, bought a car, living the dream. We got a chance to play y'all in this event. You weren't with your Team 3D. I think it was just you and some of your friends that attended. Y'all smoked us. I think it was like a complete shutout. We did not get a map round against y'all, but I did get something vital out of this meeting. Until this day, it's changed my gaming habits forever. When I first met you, I was using the arrow keys on my keyboard to move around. Didn't really PC game much. That seemed like the obvious, hey, this is how you would get around, right? You saw me playing and you came up to me and you go, you should use WASD. There's more keys around it for you to kind of navigate around the keyboard, because you saw all of me and my whole crew using the arrow keys. We did change over to that immediately, and I thank you for that. So again, it was like a really, really neat thing for me, because obviously we all have inspirations in esports, and Tim and I, do this because we love esports, and just want you to know and thank you, for everything you've done for esports, and just wanted to let you know that you're one of the big dogs on this show.
Yeah, I mean 2001, I mean that's like way back,
Way back.
I mean most people probably listening don't even know what CompUSA
No,
is.
no, I
No,
agree.
But
easily.
it was like the Best Buy at the
Yeah.
time, or Fry's or Micro Center, and it was like the store
Shout
you
out
would
Circuit
go to
City.
get your electronics. So they were one of our sponsors, so they would, hop around their stores and do little show meets and stuff. But yeah, I mean, like back then, like we were like still figuring out how to use the keyboard and like what the optimal like
Yeah.
bindings are. So yeah, I mean, I don't remember that, but it's funny. It's funny that I would say that. I would just feel like, hey, you need to switch your shit. It's not working. It's
We were
it's
literally,
so
they
mean.
had us lined up back to back. So y'all were right behind us. Y'all were dominating us, and we were having fun with it. We knew we had no chance against you guys. And so you had peeked over and just, I guess, seen one of us doing something stupid over there. And we're like, you should use WASD. And we're like, all right, we got, if he says it, we should do it. So again, that was definitely, awesome for us. And, Tim and I have kind of been talking about this recently. Just Dallas has kind of become this mecca of esports, right? And you have Dallas, you have LA. There's a couple of cities that you can maybe throw in contention, but Dallas is really, I would say, if not at the top, right there along with some of the best places. And I wanted to get your take on that from somebody who's local from the DFW area. Grew up in Plano. How have you seen that transition take place? And you've contributed to the growth. So just wanted to get your overall perspective on the growth in DFW itself for esports.
Yeah, so I think I think Dallas was the birthplace of esports. I think it started around like 1996, 1997. And thanks to the CPL, the Cyber Athlete Professional League, and QuakeCon, there were the two international gaming events that would happen in Dallas, Texas. And they were owned by id Software. So when Quake was, the pinnacle of esports, before Counter-Strike, they were having international events all here in Dallas. So all the best players from the world would fly down to compete here to try to claim the championship. And then when Counter-Strike came out, that's when the CPL kind of was born, and that's when they also started using Counter-Strike. So, lucky for me, I was here in Dallas, and it was only a 30-minute drive, so we were able to attend those events. So from like 1997 to like 2002, all the international events for Counter-Strike and Quake all happened in Dallas.
Used to be at that Renaissance Hotel, right? I think is where they used to host a lot of these events at, in those lands and all that. Yeah, I mean, that it is crazy to see how it, now we have the esports arena here, we have Complexity here, we have Team Envy here, and I don't really see it, kind of stopping anytime soon in this area.
I
You know,
remember back, this had to have been like 2005, the Embassy Suite in Frisco, like where it's now, back then it was in the middle of nowhere. But now it's all built up, right? Frisco and everything there. MLG was set there. And I remember thinking, like, esports will never get bigger than this. Like, I remember we were like 14, 15 at the time. I looked at my friend that we went. We were like, there's people here watching people play Halo. Like, this is nuts. And then, like Anuj said, I mean, Rambo, you saw it from the inside. Complexity, you weren't there to see it complete, but you saw the blueprints of how they were working with the Dallas Cowboys and everything, finishing that. Did Jason Lake and everything, like, did they consult with you as far as, hey, what should we have here for our players?
So yeah, I was with Complexity at the time when they were building out the headquarters at the Star, and I mentioned to them that they had to have some kind of replay room where the players and the coach and the staff and the analysts could go and load up the demos of the practice scrims. They could all sit down, put it on a big screen, and be able to fast forward, pause, replay, and break down all the plays. So that's one of the rooms that they implemented there. And I actually got to visit there about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's incredible. It's like, top notch, one of the best headquarters that I've ever been to. Obviously being funded and backed by Jerry Jones and the Cowboys, and like literally being right on the corner of like the street of where the headquarters of where the Cowboys are. It's like prime location. So it's amazing what they've built over there.
What do you think of the new complexity lineup?
I think there's a lot of promise. I specifically and in particular like the Blame F pickup. Every time or every match that I've seen him play, he seems to like have this intuition of knowing how to, as on T side or offense, he like his timing, his intuition is impeccable. Like he'll always find the gaps, he'll find his way around the defense, and like he'll find that flank timing. So his intuition and timing and feel for the game is really good. And plus I hear his work ethic is like, 10, 12 hours a day, like, what you would want from an in-game leader.
If it's anything like his workout schedule, then I would assume he's going to stay
Right,
top
he's
notch over there.
yeah, he's like 21 years old and he's built like Arnold
It
Schwarzenegger
really
in his
is.
prime. It's ridiculous.
So that I have two questions now, because that actually spawns a question for you. But I want to ask you this one before I forget. From the outside looking in, as a coach, did it make you cringe, or what did you think of when you saw Jason Lake's tweet, the famous tweet?
Which one? Which one?
The one where
I've seen many tweets. Which one?
the one where he pretty much called out his team after they lost at the major, saying, "Hey, if anyone's interested coming here, DM me, let me know."
Yeah, I saw that one, and I think it's justified. I mean, when you're representing the Dallas Cowboys, like I think they're valued the most
Yeah.
valuable sports franchise in the world. When you have that kind of, you're representing that kind of brand, and knowing how competitive Jason is, like he will not settle until he gets the best team in the world. So, the showing that they had wasn't anything where it needed to be. So, it was a kind of like a public statement of, hey, I'm disappointed with what I have, and I'm looking for players that can do better. So I felt like it was, from outside looking in, it can seem a little harsh, but I can understand from his point of view, it felt justified.
Yeah, I mean, and they did have their most success recently with you as their head coach. It was at the Face It Major, London 2018, and you guys, advanced easily through that challenger stage. I believe going 3-1, and then 3-0 in legend stage, and securing your legend spot. What was that experience like? As a head coach, because now head coaches in Counter Strike are so embedded in part of the team. So obviously, for you being there, it really must have been something. What was that experience like?
Yeah, absolutely. When I first joined the team, we had a different roster. We had some younger players on there that didn't have major experience or actually that much land experience. And then the team that we ended up getting eighth at the major, it was, put together within like a month or two. So we put that team together and we had to qualify through the open online qualifier of NA, like literally the first step of qualifying for the major.
Playing anybody literally at that point.
Yeah, like we were just the very like, anyone can join the team. It was a complete free for all. So we worked all the way up from that first stage all the way to top 8 of a major. So that was, it was like a 2-month, 3-month process for that whole thing. So it was amazing, like it just, there's some times, especially during like the boot camp before the major, we had like boot camped in Germany for 2 weeks, and we were getting absolutely shit on by every single European team we played on. It was so demoralizing. But, Warden being an amazing manager he is, and then, with me and then some of the players, we were able to take that experience and learn from it. And we put it all together during the major, and, we were able to upset a lot of teams there.
That was definitely one of the more exciting teams with like EA and Def. There was like a lot of characters on that team, and people fell in love with that complexity team. So, definitely exciting. And now with you still being involved with Counter Strike as much as you are, I kind of want to get, you hear this in traditional sports all the times, right? We compare eras. What are the 90s Cowboys versus the 70s Cowboys like? Or what is this era of basketball? If they played in Michael Jordan's era, how would they compare? Well, you were the best of the best in your time. You have been around the best of the best currently. How did the eras of Counter-Strike, although I understand different games to an extent, how do these eras compare to one another?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I- if I were like my answer to kind of generalize it to also incorporate the other sports is like current sports nowadays, whatever it is, they had people to learn and study from the past. So whether that's strategy or technique or practice regimen or whatever it is, like they had people to learn from nowadays. So back then when we played Counter-Strike and esports, we were the first ones doing it. We didn't have anyone else to learn from. We didn't have other strats to, we didn't have other in-game leaders or players or demos to learn from.
I mean,
So
people
we
were
were
using
just,
arrow keys to move.
yeah, exactly. There was people like that. So we were doing what we were the innovators, we were the pioneers. We were just doing what we thought was the best thing to do and trying the best we could. So nowadays, like the players are insanely skilled. They're getting better at a faster rate than we were in the past because they have all these other demos and other pros to learn from. So um, it's difficult. You can't. It's hard to compare because of that reason.
No, and I think that's a great answer. I think that's absolutely true. Is y'all did not have that previous generation to look up to, and that kind of leads me into a question of in esports, who did you look up to at that time? Like, where did that drive, that passion for gaming come from you? For Tim and I, we had people like you, right? So, who was your version of you to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I had some. I played other games too beyond Counter-Strike, so I was fans of other gamers. Like in particular, Warcraft 3, I was a big fan of Grubby and Moon. Um, StarCraft, it was Boxer. In Quake 3, I was a big fan of this team called All Stars. They were from Sweden, so like, I was a fan of other esports games. And I was a fan of those players. In terms of Counter-Strike, I was a huge demo watcher, so I would watch tons of demos, especially from other regions and other teams to try to look for other play styles or things we could learn. I mean, there was tons of players out there that I like. Wally, there's a player named Wally from Sweden. I was a big fan of. Alex from WNV. Um, so yeah, those were some of the players that I respected.
On that same note, then, as far as coaching goes, because it just seems like, and I could be way offline here, but you do have like that coaching mentality, right? Like just looking behind you, I can tell you're a man of details as your head is perfectly framed by the objects on the wall, and I know that's not by an accident, Rambo. That was purposely done. You can't convince me
Yeah,
otherwise. I mean,
yeah,
who?
I am a man.
Oh, go
I am a
ahead.
man of details. I think they matter. Um, I think if you take care of the details, the other results will follow. Um,
So,
yeah,
so for my question then, when it comes to coaching inspiration, because I knew just we've already talked about it, like that was such a rare thing in esports. Like I remember back in Halo days, you had coaches and they were more in-game management because of times and weapon spawns and things like that. But they were very few and far between still. Like, did you look at traditional sports for that coaching inspirations or anything like that?
in the past or during my playing career, I didn't. I definitely do now. As I've gotten older, I find inspiration from all over the place. But back in the day, even when I competed, I always had a passion for learning the game and even teaching the game. Like when I was playing, I gave like 250 lessons and we wrote a Counter-Strike guide. So I was always a student of the game, and I also liked teaching it too. I liked the challenge of trying to share that knowledge. So it was just something that I always studied, and during my playing career, it was just something that I always thought about like 24/7. If I wasn't playing, I was like sleeping or trying to fall asleep, thinking about the game nonstop.
What was it like being a esports athlete in the early 2000s. Obviously, we see it nowadays. These guys are celebrities, right? I mean, they get recognized. Obviously, with all the social media, they're very visible to the public eye. For you being, the top of class for what you're doing, what was that experience like? As a professional, did you feel stardom at all, or anything? How different was it than it would be right now?
Yeah, I think it, my professional career really took off around like 2001 when we actually got full salaries and we were able to travel to any event and like our hotels were taken care of. And at the time, that was like unheard of. That was like the best deal you could get in esports. So that actually allowed us to practice full time and, not have to worry about getting a job. So we're able to practice and do that. And it's the dream. What can I say? We're very fortunate to do what we got to do. We're playing and competing and traveling the world full time playing games. And now, I mean, I too kind of do worry where I would be right now. Like, say if I was born, 5, 10 years
Yeah.
later,
Right.
and see how I would contend versus the current players right now. So, but no, I'm happy with all my experience during gaming. Obviously, we weren't playing for millions of dollars, but um,
It felt
back
like it.
yeah, we felt like it for
Yeah.
sure. I mean,
Yeah,
like, some of the WCGs we won, I mean, that was a lot of money for a teenager.
yeah, for sure.
I
No,
remember
for
back in the day, I played. I don't know if you know this, Rambo, but I was a semi-professional Rainbow Six, Vegas 1 and 2 semi-pro. We won $100 once at a tournament, and I walked into my job at Starbucks that next day and quit because I was going to become a professional gamer. So here I am
hell,
Yeah,
today.
naturally.
at the CompUSA tournament, they gave us the big checks. And so we got second place in that tournament, and they took a big picture of us that we still have. And I'll post that on Twitter. I will go find that. And they have us all standing there with this massive check with all five of us. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world at that time. So I can't imagine what it was like at the level that you guys were at.
It's funny because
For
we had Clayster and Crim6 who play for Dallas Empire for Call of Duty, and they said that they always get the question of from kids now saying, "Hey, how do I become pro? I become pro?" And I'd have to imagine your answer was similar to theirs, Rambo. But I'm curious on it. Is when someone approaches you today, right? Say someone playing FPL or whatever, they want to get noticed. They want to go pro. It's completely different from when you went pro. So I mean, what advice do you have to people nowadays who are wanting to do that?
Yeah, I think the formula for any game that I've seen amongst professional gamers is that there's simply no shortcut around putting the time in to it. So I feel like most pro gamers nowadays, they were growing up during the high school age, where they're living with their parents, and they were able to play outside of school or high school from around 13 or 14, and they've gotten like 2 or 3 years of experience, and then like after high school, they have this period where they can go full time. That seems to be a lot of like 80% of what the pros are now. So you have to be able to put in 8 to 12 hours every day for a year. I mean, for any game, it's just the competition's too fierce. Like you have to put the time in, you have to build that experience. And then, but I think you can kind of shortcut that time too, because now you could be more focused and intentional with how you use that practice time. So now, like back then, I would just play public servers all day, every day, and I thought that was the best way to
Just
practice. But
stomping silver ones. Just
yeah, just complete noobs with 300 ping with like 10 FPS. I thought it was God, but yeah, so I mean, like you put the time in, but also you got to be playing versus good competition. You want to be playing with the best and against the best, because if you're playing with the best, you're learning from them, you're seeing them every time you die, you hear their communication, you see how they play, you hear how they think, you get their feedback. And then when you're playing against the best and you're getting shit on or whatever it is, it really gives you an idea of where you need to be, like where you're at. But if you're starting to play with these pros and semi-pros and you're starting to do pretty good, then that means you're on track. Like you know, your skill level and your ability to think, your game sense and all that, your impact value, like it's pretty close to pro level.
Was there ever a thought for you during the CS:GO lifespan to try and re-enter the scene as a player?
Um, I mean, after CGS, like this was probably like around 7 or 8 years after I'd gone professional, I thought about getting back into it as a pro, but um, I know what it takes to be a professional, and it takes 8 to 10 hours a day of play, and you have to be passionate and you need to have fun while you're practicing. And I just didn't have that with Counter-Strike anymore. I just felt like I beat the game. Like there was nothing more I could learn. I had been in every situation, so it was more of just maintenance upkeep
Yeah.
instead of more of learning and enjoying the game.
I want to take this time then before we let you go to touch on two things here. I want to go over to your time in Korea. So obviously you have a Korean background, first generation American, if I'm not mistaken. I heard you mention that in a recent interview. Was there any pressure in that? Because Anuj, you are also first generation American, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
And I know with Anuj, I've seen his parents. So much pressure, Rambo. You would never understand. For him not to fail in life, and look at him, failed. But you have
Right.
succeeded. But was there any pressure there, like convincing your parents to be like, hey, I'm first generation American son over here. I'm going to go play video games?
Yeah, so I think I certainly had that pressure from my parents, especially being Korean and Asian. It's all about academics and school and go to college and you know take that safe career and path. Um, but I was also kind of lucky too because I was the only child, and my parents were often at work. So my dad had to keep me entertained while they were gone. So he bought me like consoles and like computers and you know like internet so
So
I
that
could
kind of
entertain
worked out.
myself. So you know anytime they were at work, I was able to play. And then eventually it got to a point where I was playing a little bit too much. So they would hide my keyboard and mouse, and you know I had to go find it, and then you know I could play, and then you know hide it back when they were before they got home. So I definitely had some of that pressure from my parents, but when I started being able to travel and I started getting a salary and stuff, and they saw that it was actually bringing some value, they were fully supportive.
And I know on our show, we always have the stereotype of if Korea ever really wanted to get a team and focus in a scene, so like whether it be Counter-Strike or just pick a game, right? Koreans always seem to be a top tier team in that respective esport. Now that's the stereotype on our show. But when you lived over there and when you coached over there, is that stereotype warranted? Like, do they just prep differently than Americans or Europeans do?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's something I've thought about a lot actually. You know, like, you know, StarCraft, I think they kind of was the pioneer in the forefront of StarCraft and they dominated that because they were the first to start.
Yeah.
But then when League of Legends came out, when everyone had this fresh, clean slate, they were all still able to, you know, be very successful in Overwatch.
I mean, they control the meta in Overwatch. It's like no one even bothers about what the meta is until the Koreans figure it out.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I'm trying to think if it's. There might be some cultural, um, a factor to it. I think Koreans are super very disciplined. I think they're one of those cultures where like when someone finds an interest, they're kind of like all in.
Right.
And you'll see this with golfers from Koreans, like as soon as they're little kids and they find an interest, like their parents are like, you know, push them all
Just
in for that
100%.
discipline. And I think that mentality, I kind of have it too. Like whenever I find I have an interest in something, I'm like super addictive or like I put all my time and effort into learning it and the best I can. So I don't know if it's genetics or culture, um, but I think the commonality that I've seen in Korea is that they're just super laser focused whenever they find something they enjoy. And maybe I think the Japanese culture is kind of in that way too, where they like pick a discipline and they just focus their entire life on it and they just want to master it. and they don't veer off. It's not like, they try to master all these kinds of disciplines, just like this one thing that they love to do.
Well, you heard it there. If you want to be the best at esports, move to Korea. Game over. No, one thing I want to touch on before we do move on here is you tweeted out not too long ago, a couple months back, regarding Riot's FPS game Project A. And it looks like you had some involvement here. Obviously I don't know exactly what you're doing with them, but can you give us any insight as to maybe your thoughts on at least what you've seen of the game, maybe what they're coming up with? Does it excite you? I mean, just as much info as you can give there.
Yeah, sure. So I'm still under NDA, so I can't really say too much, but just for people that haven't seen my Project A interview, one of the senior game designers and map developers, Volcano, he's been working at Riot Games for about 4 years. He's a former teammate of mine in Team 3D, and he invited me and 9 other former veteran FPS players to come down and try their new FPS game called Project A. And they flew us down for 4 days, and they had to try this new game out. It's been a while now, so about 6 months ago. And I could say that this could be potentially the next contending, like a top 5 FPS esports game. And this was when I tested it about 6-7 months ago. So I think they're on track. Like the gameplay, the feel, the mechanics, the maps, everything about it just like screamed competitive esports FPS game. And the people that they have working on it have that experience of being at the top level of FPS competition. So they've got the staff, they've got obviously the backing of Riot Games, which has League of Legends.
That's huge.
So they have it's
not
the
some
biggest
indie developer, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
So they have the infrastructure, and so I think this game, I think it's gonna be a huge hit.
Did you like the combat style that they have, where it is a shooter, but it looks like also class abilities as well, as kind of what we got from the video that they posted? Like they had some, obviously more like either whether it's magic or whatever you want to call it. But do you like that combination that they're putting together there between the two?
I do. So they're blending a mix of abilities and classes and FPS shooting mechanics. And when I had played it at the time, I thought it was the right amount of mix, the right amount of blend. It wasn't overpowered or cheesy in one way or the other. Like it felt clean. It felt like it wasn't too over imbalanced. It was
Felt
like the
a
right
shooter
amount.
first.
Absolutely a shooter first. 100%
Yeah.
a shooter first.
That's exciting.
That's all we wanted to hear.
Yeah, we're already pumped about it. So
just want
I don't
to
think
shoot.
they've released any additional information. I mean, I don't think there's any release dates or beta or anything announced for that, but we'll keep you all up to date as info comes out there.
Yeah, I haven't heard any dates. They were teasing when we tried about 6-7 months ago. They were teasing about a friends and family beta. And again, when I played at the time, it was super polished. So I'm gonna guess it's where they're gonna have some kind of super closed beta within mid of this year. And that's just a complete, I'm just throwing that on the air,
Yeah.
but I cross my fingers.
Well, the game felt good when you played it, so that's the best we can hope for, right? So that's awesome.
Yeah, so that's definitely next title that I'm looking at. If there was a game that I might go back into coaching or even playing at some level, I think that might be it.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to a new game as well. And I know right now what you're doing is your YouTube channel where you're pumping out content, FPS Coach, where you're giving out various advice. And I would almost say where it just doesn't pertain to FPS. Most of it does, like with your arm movement and everything here. But like your latest video, how to avoid tilt. Haven't been able to watch that one, but
Tim really needs
some
to,
might
so.
say I need it. I will say just don't have bad teammates, and then you'll avoid tilt, right? Maybe you can have your next video of how not to blame your teammates for everything. But what kind of feedback have you gotten from that? Because you always see these videos on YouTube of like, the how-to videos, but it's always by people who you don't really want to hear from, but like you, right? Like you should be charging for your advice, right? People hire you to coach their professional teams, and yet you're doing YouTube help videos. Like, What made you want to do something like that?
Yeah, so after I parted ways with Cloud9, like I've always had this passion and interest in coaching and teaching people. And I feel like I have all this like information and knowledge that I have, so I want to share that with people and help them get better at playing games and having more fun and enjoying what they, like to do, and hopefully pass along some life lessons or some things out of the games that they can use to make their lives better.
Have you kind of relearned some things yourself as you're going back, trying to think of like I loved the one where you're talking about like the wrist position, right? Like, did you really have to almost like look at yourself and break down like, wait, how do I do my wrist? Do I do this correctly or?
Yeah, so I mean, like every video that I put out, I spend a good amount of time thinking about exactly what I want to say and how I want to say it, the visuals and the sequence and all that, because when you put a video out, you can only do it pretty much one time. So like that topic, it might not seem like it, but I put a decent amount of time into thinking about how I want to say it. And during that process, I certainly reinforce that more into my own knowledge, I guess, of myself. Like it helps me understand things a lot better.
Yeah, like I said, I definitely appreciate it. I know a lot of our listeners are actually new to CS:GO, believe it or not. They find our podcast by wanting to get into CS:GO more. So I always suggest them to check out your YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Ron Rambo Kim. That's also your Twitter. So everyone should go check him out there, follow his stuff, watch his YouTube, and learn the game. It's one of the easier, probably more pain-free ways to learn Counter-Strike. You can't always just join a deathmatch server, but that's on you. Before we let you go, Rambo, if I could get a what we call liner from you. That's where if you've ever listened to a radio station, you can state your name, like, hey, this is Rambo, and you're listening to The Center Ring.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ron Rambo Kim, and I've that's how bad my memory
No, you're
is.
good. You're good.
Oh.
The center ring.
The center
The
ring.
Center Ring, yeah.
Let's try it again. Hey, what's up, guys? This is Ron Rambo Kim, and you are listening to The Center Ring.
Look at
Nailed
that.
it.
Second
time
was
with a charm.
What a professional. Excellent. Well, dude, no joke. It's a huge honor to have you on the show. We're both huge fans of you and just following your career throughout all these years, and it's been great.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys.
Well, there you have it, Anuj. That bucket list just got one item checked off for you.
Oh man, you know what, Tim? Like that was a moment for me. I really had one of those. Like I've been doing the show for 4 years now, and this is one of those things that you kind of hope to get out of. Like, hey, what is one of the things you want to accomplish? Right? You have all these big goals. You want to be a millionaire and have hundreds of thousands of viewers, but that's not what it was all about. Like a lot of it was about talking to people that I idolized growing up. I had my sports athletes that I idolized.
I just
had
want
my
free
esports,
energy drinks out of it.
or a free sweater occasionally, you know. But this was really like just it definitely was a bucket list. I know I got some slack on Twitter from some of the guys out there of how I was going to handle the interview. Tim, I thought I handled myself like a pro, but I did have the googly eyes while I was talking to him. I was super stoked, and I think we'll be able to get him on again. I hope he enjoyed it, and I'm excited to hopefully get a chance to speak to him again, whether it's one of our casting couch segments that we do down the line, or just have him back on when Project A or something comes out, because this guy's been testing it from, one of the early adopters for it. So
yeah, no, I thought it was a excellent interview. I think Rambo is Mr. CS:GO in my eyes. Like, you want to talk about just a student of the game, I think he's exactly that. So hopefully he definitely we'll get him back on the show. It's just in what way. After the interview, I did ask, hey, so, because we all live near each other, relatively. I was like, so we do this casting couch, and if you're not doing anything, you can join us. And I don't know if it was just being polite, but he said, yeah, he'd love to. Just let him know. I was like,
that would be something like special. I would be so pumped to.
Would he just sit in
watch
between us on your
a
two-seater
CS:GO
couch?
game with Rambo? I would give him the damn couch. I would sit on the floor, scrub his feet while we're watching, give him a little Prosecco. We would make it a lovely evening.
So I think it's easily the best interview of Rambo on YouTube, if you ask me.
Winner, winner, chicken dinner, baby.
All right, let's get into one last topic before we get into e-news. And although Fortnite is a shit tier game and it sucks, damn, am I jealous that I don't like it? Because Epic really, really, really does a good job of supporting that game. As they announced today that they are going to release a series of what they actually call it, creator skins. I don't know what
I think it was like content creator skins or something like that.
So the first one that I saw, and I don't know, maybe they've announced more. I don't look into it, but Ninja now has his own skin in the game.
It's badass looking, Tim. Like, I mean,
And it's Ninja. It's not a Ninja designed skin. It is Ninja.
No, it's Ninja. It's like actually Ninja. And the same thing for like Cypher PK, Nick Merckx. Like there's a handful of these that have kind of been leaked or announced as we're going here. But
they gotta
what
be Dr. Disrespect.
Like, is there a Dr. Disrespect?
No,
one?
I'm just saying they have to.
They kind of. I was telling you this earlier.
It's
I feel like they kind of made
motorcycle dude
that has a Ferrari as his freaking
I know, but give me
car. It's very like Dr. Disrespect-ish. Anyways, this is neat. I mean, this is a cool way to support your content creators that do support your game, right? Like Fortnite is big, very largely in part to based on like these guys constantly streaming it and playing it the way they did when it initially came out. And yeah, I mean, there's like a sense of jealousy because that is like really neat to have yourself in a video, like have you are the character in the game.
Like
you're not
Shroud
a character in the game.
PUBG,
the character is you.
You know, like guys have their own skins in other games. This isn't the first. Epic didn't reinvent the wheel here, right? They're collaborating.
But what we see is generally like clothing skins.
That's what
right?
I'm saying,
or like,
right?
Yeah, like you see in PUBG.
This
and all
is
that.
like above and beyond, like legit. Pretty. Like I said, I don't like Fortnite. I think it's an awful game. But for the people who enjoy it, they keep that game fresh. They keep it fun. And you know, the thing is because. And this is kind of the amazing ecosystem that Epic has created around Fortnite is the content creation game behind it. Now this makes people want to create content for it because, hey, maybe if I get big enough, I can get my own skin in the game. And I'm thinking, I don't think that, right? People in their 20s don't think that, but kids, right? You're thinking about the people
14, 15-year-olds that are just starting off, getting into it,
the
13,
idiots
whatever.
who think that they can become ninja. It's not going to happen, kids.
You know what, guys? It's funny because Tim's over here talking all this ish right now about Fortnite. I want y'all to know, Tim enjoyed playing it with me about a month and a half ago.
No.
He semi-enjoyed himself.
That is
I've
a lie.
heard Tim in games where he has raged and hated on it in every moment of it. He was relatively silent, a little bit of bitching, but that's normal. That's common.
Yes,
so
you're not going to not get that from me.
There was not any over-the-top hatred for the game. That came after like hours and hours of playing. So there was at least a solid 5-hour window there where Tim was okay with Fortnite.
And I'll tell you why. Because we did play Fortnite a couple of weeks ago. I made 0 to no effort of building,
which is fine. I'm okay with it. I don't.
And we actually won one where I think we're not kidding. I'm not kidding, ringers. I think me and Anuj won one without building a single wall.
And we did win a couple of games. Okay, that's just the one in particular he's talking about where and this is like, people would do this as a challenge, right? You would see the Ninja Challenge, no builds. This was the TCR day-to-day life. We do not build in the game.
You call it a challenge? I just call it the way I play Fortnite. I can't remember all those keybinds.
Tim kind of enjoyed it. Maybe we'll become content creators for it, and who knows? Maybe there'll be a TCR skin in the game one day. Some other Battle Royale news, Tim. We had an Apex Legends update, and I really don't want to dive too far into this. We will come back to this when Season 4 kicks off. But I think it's kind of important to maybe start mentioning some of this stuff as we get close to their inaugural, Pro League season type thing that they're, tournament style season that they're going to be doing. But they nerfed a couple of characters, Wraith being the big talk. Wraith has been a OP character since the start. I think she's probably the most popular character, you could say by far, since the game launched. They have nerfed her a little bit. I wouldn't say into oblivion, but definitely made it more difficult to use her, increasing some of her times or cooldown timers and things of that sort. And then also buffing other characters. Gibraltar, I think, kind of being the main one, giving him some different healing type abilities, making him more of a true support role. So I kind of like how they're defining this a little bit more. You're not like that tweener, just fat character who has a big hitbox
Right.
but can throw poisons. Like they've made him more useful in a team setting. So I'm glad that they're doing some of these. I know these changes in particular were not loved, but we will see a season 4 come out here fairly soon, and then the league start up after that. So we'll dive in a lot more into the battle royale Apex game, when that happens. Um, on another note, Call of Duty. Call of Duty also had a large announcement. They are making this really difficult, Tim, to like make me believe they know what they're doing right now. It's kind of a shit show, to be honest with
Kind
y'all.
of want to save this though.
Yeah, so I think again, we'll do this kind of like we just did the Apex one. It'll be a brief update on what they did. We'll come back to this because there's already some blow up going on internally in the scene, and we're about to get some clarity, I think, from the dev on this. So we'll see a little bit more info here. But basically, they removed several maps from the competitive map pool for the league play. Why is this a big deal, you ask? The freaking league is in 2 weeks, and you are making adjustments now for teams that have been practicing. I mean, we already have players at 1,000+ hours in the game, so there's been a lot of time put into practicing for these maps. Unfortunately, a change this late can I feel like have a pretty drastic effect. So we're seeing that. We also saw some tweaking of some weapons, some banned weapons, attachments, things of that sort. So all of these things that you feel like really should have been placed months ago to be prepared for this league, they're making changes 2 weeks before the league starts. And God forbid you used a loadout where one of these items was important or an integral piece of your loadout. Well, good luck. You got to find a change within 14 days here. So major adjustments weeks before the season. We will 100% get back to this, if not in a segment, at least in a yikes.
Maybe their strategy is because they've done absolutely zero to promote the league. They can change whatever they want because they're like, no one's going to watch this anyways because no one knows this is happening. Seriously, unless you are just a hardcore Call of Duty esports fan, there literally no chance. If you are a casual Call of Duty player, you know this thing exists. None.
Yeah.
And when I say casual Call of Duty player, I mean you just bought the game for the first time, or you buy it every year and all you do is you've always just ever played pugs, right? You've never looked at game battles. You've never gone on, r/competitive COD or COD competitive. Like you just...
Tim, if we called in, if we had to phone a friend right now and I could make 3 calls, I know I could call 3 people that have over 50+ hours in this game that do not know Call of Duty League exists. And I know that for a fact. Corey, Ronnie, and Kamar, all 3 of them. I play a lot of games with these guys. If they know, it's because I have mentioned it.
Yeah, we've talked about
it. Guarantee you they would have zero knowledge of the league or that it even exists because of how they've promoted it, I guess is a bad word to use here. The lack of promotion. Yeah, you know what? I'm writing this down in yikes, Tim, because I think I'm gonna have to come back to this. Might be a little too much for E News here.
Let's make it happen. I also have a bit idea, so why don't you put that in the notes while you're typing that in, just so I don't forget, because that's you just gave me a great idea for that episode as well. All right, let's get into some E News.
More E News.
More E News. That was not E News. That was a teaser of future episodes. That's what we'll call that. But for actual E News, in Overwatch, 2 more bite the dust. As we remember, Semler not coming back to the Overwatch League. He announced he actually finally put to rest a lot of the rumors that we had.
Yeah.
I'll admit, I was wrong. I thought he was coming back. I really, truly did. But he said he was not coming back and mainly just cited that the game doesn't interest him anymore. It's a boring... The changes to the game have lost his interest, which he's not alone in that sentiment. A lot of people think that. Yours truly thinks that. I haven't touched Overwatch in months, because of the changes that have been made to the game. And he's like, I just can't fake it anymore.
As a CS:GO fan, I'm quite excited about this.
Oh, absolutely.
I would love to have him back in the Counter-Strike community. And I think the Counter-Strike community regrets the way they treated him. I think this will be good for both the community and for Semler to kind of get back together, because there was a little bit of a negative sentiment as he kind of left Counter-Strike, like, oh, we weren't losing. We have Sadakist, we have Henry G, we have Anders, we have Moses. Like, we have all this talent in Counter-Strike. Were we going to miss him? I think the answer is yes, Tim, because his voice, to me, in Counter-Strike is iconic. You think of the Happy Deagle play. I mean, there's just so many out there. And so I'm quite excited with the thought of him coming back to CS. I don't think he's officially said, like, hey, I'm only doing CS. Although we can anticipate,
sure.
He'll be with Blast or one of these other big TOs. But
and he did word it like he's not going to be back with Overwatch permanently. So that might leave some rooms for, homestands or things like that. But listen, Semler needs the hype. He needs to see pop-offs. He needs to see headshots. Overwatch Season 1 had all that. Overwatch Season 2 did not at all.
And the way it's looking, you're not going to see that in Overwatch Season 3.
You're not going to see that again, ever, in Overwatch. It's past the point of no return. There's way too many shields, way too many, like, the way people's mind thinks with it now. It's just, no, it's not going to happen. Another one, though, that announced that they are not coming back to the Overwatch League is Malik, of course, he was actually started to work the desk a little bit, but he said he will not be returning to Overwatch League. That one almost didn't seem like it was his decision. So, sucks to see him go. That's about all I gotta say. If you thought Malik affected the broadcast, then there you go. He's not coming back. I already talked about some of the COD majors. Major changes, that is, the Apex changes. In other news, Complexity releases their Clash Royale team.
Tim, this one was a little interesting considering we had a conversation with Jason Lake about a year or so ago now. And I felt like a big focus for them was the mobile games, right? Like they said, they felt like there was a lot of money in that space. It was
funny because we were sitting in Jason Lake's office, and I don't even know how the conversation came up, but all I know is that Anuj and I looked at each other when he was like, yeah, we're going to focus on mobile gaming, and me and Anuj just did the side eye,
no, don't say that. Don't say that. You're a Counter-Strike team. Counter-Strike first,
Don't let me question you, but okay.
But yeah, obviously they found a reason to make a move here. They released all three of the players. Again, I'm surprised because I know Jason Lake is not alone in this. Okay, I know there's a lot of people making a push for mobile gaming. It is just massive, and I understand why people are getting into that field. I also know that salaries are not overly expensive for these players, so I'm wondering if it wasn't as profitable as a business model, or kind of what is. I'm assuming that's the reason you wouldn't let him go if it was profitable, right?
Hey man, he's got to pay those Counter-Strike players somehow.
Yeah, got to. He said he was going to be making changes. We didn't know it affects every other game, but release the whole team and again, find it interesting coming from the mobile side because I thought that was more of going to be a focus for a lot of teams in 2020.
Enways Games announced that they will have a league for its Power Rangers fighting games, Battle for the Grid.
And Tim, the finals are going to be held at EVO.
Yeah. So
that's pretty crazy.
So those who don't know, there is actually a pretty tight-knit community for that game. You can go on Twitch, some of the FGC guys I follow on Twitch, you will see occasionally playing that Power Rangers game. So
I didn't even know it existed until it popped this article up.
So for the people in the know, I guess it's not that bad of a game.
Yeah, and they have some huge partnerships with the game. They got Lionsgate. Lionsgate makes Knives Out. I mean, they just made so many amazing films, John Wick and all that stuff that you can think of. And then even Hasbro, who is Nerf, Monopoly, Transformers, a lot of Disney stuff, all tied to that branding company. So impressive that they're able to pull in, I feel like, those kind of sponsorships, but good for them. And we'll see the finals held at EVO.
Show. And last but not least, Nooch.
I switched the page. Valkyrie moves over to YouTube from 100 Thieves and Twitch. So still on 100 Thieves. She's moving over from Twitch to YouTube. We have seen this trend. We've talked about this trend at nausea, I think, at this point. The reason I bring this up is that's two people from 100 Thieves making the switch over to YouTube. There's obviously a great relationship between Fwiz and Nade Shot. They've gone back years from competing in Call of Duty to now, Wiz taking over a global head of esports, and so that's two big moves over to YouTube from 100 Thieves. I find that again, I find all of these moves really fascinating because we don't know what the money is that's involved. We know it's a high dollar amount, and we think it's a long-term benefit, right? Like the assumption is they're getting all this money up front. This is the move you got to make, but these people are only like 18 to 25 years old. And so you kind of wonder, like, hey, if you had stayed with Twitch for the next 15 plus years, was this still the best move when you look at them side by side? So again, we're going to see more of these. We're going to see this continue to happen, and we will know the results ourselves in a couple of years of how this has really all worked out and how it's affected the streaming ecosystem.
I could definitely see a scenario where 100 Thieves is 100% on YouTube. And let me tell you why. Because what do they do? Content creation.
Yeah.
And if you can have that under... Now, some content creators might argue, well, if you can spread your content through other platforms, a la, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, right? You're spreading out your content, your influence. But there's also something to be said is, well, yes, but what if all of these... I mean, guys, we have millions of followers on YouTube. What if we just keep that all in-house, right? There's also something to be said for that. So, like you said, Anuj, though, will it work out? I guess that's your definition of working out, right? Will they have the same viewer count numbers? Definitely not. We've already seen that. Will they make just as much money, though, through deals and sponsorships? That's what the question is. So, anyways, what a great episode. The best episode ever. If I do say so myself. Oh, hey, actually, before we do this, let's just tell the listeners what's coming up here. So, we may or may not have another interview on table for you here in a few weeks. We were supposed to get one today, but hey, one was bound to get canceled, right?
It was bound to happen.
We had a good run. And, of course, sometimes when you have things scheduled, some things don't work out. Oh, my gosh, I'm dying. All right. So, Anuj, you are going out of town tomorrow for a week.
I am. We are leaving for a week. We are going on our baby moon. We will be in the lovely island of Hawaii. So, be gone until next Thursday. We come back Thursday night-ish, and we'll be ready to go for the weekend show. But yes, I will be gone for the next 7 days here.
So that being said, to the listeners, aka the ringers, I'm going to try and get shows still out for you next week. I'm going to try to get guest hosts or whoever to fill in some time with me if I don't die between now and then, and still get some content. Speaking of content, we just pump out content. You know how we do it.
You want me to do a live stream while I'm out there?
Do it. Yeah, absolutely.
A road to Hana little live stream.
I'm sure your wife won't mind that.
Yeah, not at all.
She's pregnant. She'll have to take a nap eventually.
Some point.
Maybe we can do that or something. But yeah, so that's it. Just keep an eye out on Twitter at the Center Ring for what our plans are, or in our Discord, we'll also let you know there. Again, thank you so much to Rambo for coming on the show. Definitely a pleasure. Was all ours. We'll definitely get him back on the show at some point in time. His interview can also be found on YouTube. So if you want to go ahead and view that, share that, go for it. Follow us on Twitter at The Center Ring. Our website, tcr.gg's got everything else on there for you. If you listen on iTunes, go ahead, like, subscribe, rate, whatever you do on that thing. and do whatever else you must to make sure TCR lives on into perpetuity. Yeah, as we said, I should get something done for you. There'll be at least one episode next week. Maybe not two. We'll see what I can rally together, if I can get some people together to do some shows. But until then, thank you so much for listening, whether you skipped around or listened to the whole darn thing. Love you all the same. We will see you next week for sure, at least once. For Nuge, I'm Tim. We'll see ya.